We are back on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180, 1230 KGEO, and 1410 KERI. Our guest by phone, Elizabeth Emken, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. So, Elizabeth, before we went on the break, we were about to talk about that poll. I guess Feinstein's lead has shrunk from, 12%, something like that? It's gone down?
Right. Well, what's interesting about this 24-way primary, and I'm not I'm not a millionaire, a billionaire, a CEO, or a movie star, so I didn't come in with, $5 million. So it was really, the whole primary process was a little bit different than we've seen in the past. So it really hasn't been since after this 24-way primary that you were able to get a poll. But now that it is just Feinstein and myself, right after the 1st of July, the first poll came out. And this was done by Pepperdine Public Policy in cooperation with Small Business Roundtable. That poll had us 18.5% apart, with 20% undecided. Okay? And she was already under 50%. She was at 48% with that poll. Now, just 10 days ago, August 2nd, we had a second poll, same questions, same polling group, same likely voter sample, and we are 12% apart. She fell 3 points to 45%. I picked up 3 points to 33%. But what's really remarkable is this 20% undecided. And let me ask you guys, are you guys both married?
Clay is, I'm not.
Personal question.
Well, okay, Clay, are you undecided at this point about whether you plan to still be married on November the 6th?
Not at all. I plan on being married.
You plan on being married. So let me ask you, people who are undecided about whether they want Dianne Feinstein as their U.S. Senator, do you think they're unclear about who she is and whether they want to still be hanging out with her on the November 6th?
I don't think they have any idea who she is.
Dianne Feinstein?
Right.
You don't think they know who she is?
I mean, she's by name they know who she is, but
right.
I don't think they know who she really is or what she represents or what she does.
See, I think they do. I think they know what she represents, and she represents everything that's gone wrong with this state. Even all those declined to state voters, those no party preference voters, they know something's wrong, and they know Dianne Feinstein's been in charge.
But
and
people
I think
vote.
They're absolutely looking for a change. And the reason I say that is we know from the same poll that she enjoys nearly 100% name ID. People know who she is, and conversely, people don't know who I am yet. I'm just getting out there and introducing myself to the people of California. I'm just talking to these voters, and they're just starting to hear about me. And you know what they know? They know that Dianne Feinstein is out of touch, disinterested in what's going on with the people of California. She and her husband have enriched themselves off of her 20 years in the U.S. Senate. And I'm just like you guys. I've got a mortgage. I've got 3 kids in school. My husband and I work for a living. I know what's going on in California. I know how people are struggling, and I intend to do something about it. And Dianne Feinstein, honestly, she enjoys the ceremony of her seat, but she is not working on behalf of you, your families, or me and my family, that's for sure.
Wow, but the problem that I've always seen is people vote based on party. And California is such a strong blue state. You have an uphill battle, Elizabeth, and I hope you're successful. But it's going to take a lot of work.
I just don't think we're that solid blue. I without a doubt, she'll get 40% of the vote. I don't think there's any question about that. And without a doubt, I would get 33% of the vote. There's no question about that. What the question is, those 20% in the middle who are undecided right now, they know something's wrong in our state. They're probably not ideological. They probably just simply want a better life for their families and their kids. And I want that for them, too. And I just give you Dianne Feinstein's last 20 years if you want to know what she would do in the next 6 years. And I think that's the message we need to take to those 20%.
Yeah, Elizabeth, this is Marty. I tend to agree with you. I think I'm going to make a prediction. I think that there is going to be a Romney-Ryan wave, and I think people like you are going to be able to come in on that wave. And it's going to change the Senate as well as the House, and I think we're going to have another shot at changing all this.
Well,
so
and I think you're very right. I do believe that at some level, certainly I am going to be influenced by the presidential race.
Yeah, no question about it.
No question about it.
Yep.
And what we're hearing, and I'm sure you all have heard this too, this is an anti-incumbent year. Mm-hmm. 2010 was really a Republican year, if you will. And on our best day, to your point, the Republican brand in California isn't doing that well. But I'm not out there representing the Republican brand per se. I'm out there representing, although I am a Republican, but what I really am representing is I'm representing people like you and me, and families who have been struggling with issues and who understand what the problems are. And frankly, I'm a new generation and a fresh face and new voice and a new perspective in the U.S. Senate. And that's what people are craving. They're craving real people who understand what it's like to be worried about interest rates.
No question about it. And let me interrupt you here because I want to tell people who this new face is. We're having a conversation by phone with Elizabeth Emken, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate.
You know, Elizabeth, you talked earlier that you had started business or worked in business, but the one thing you failed to understand is you didn't build it.
It's that isn't that going to come, haunt him for who knows how long. People know better than that. They really do. And all of us who, work for a living, who have either worked for a business or have built a business of our own. My husband, he for a time worked with a couple of other guys working on building a business. I know what it's like to sacrifice while you're in that building phase and trying to get things started. And anyone who's ever been through that just bristles when you think about the idea that wasn't something that you did yourself. And again, perfect example. Here you have Dianne Feinstein, who is supposed to be a servant to the people of California, and she's been sending business to her husband. They've enriched themselves off of this position of hers for years. She's been in office nearly half a century, and this is what people don't like. They don't like it. They want to know that the people representing them have a clue about what's going on with families. And you remember I mentioned my second career was a draft?
Mm-hmm.
My son was diagnosed with autism. He just had his 20th birthday, and he's profoundly disabled, and he will need a lifetime of care. So I also think people of California want someone back in the U.S. Senate who's going to address the really tough problems with our budget and our debt. And they want to know that that person, though, is going to address it with a real care and compassion for families. Look, there is nothing in my background and nothing about me that says anything other than a care and compassion for families. And I'm going to go fix these problems. I'm a problem solver.
Good. Elizabeth?
And I'm going to do what it needs to be done and I'm not going to push Grandma over the cliff in a wheelchair.
Good. I've got a question on the jobs report that came out last month. Over 2 million people in California are out of work, and the Democrats have no solution.
Yep.
I mean, are we going in the wrong direction? What would you do?
Oh, everyone. There is again. California. Everyone knows we're going in the wrong direction. 73% of Californians acknowledge it. Our unemployment, it ranges anywhere from 12% to I've heard numbers in excess of 20% unemployment in the Central Valley. We're at the bottom in terms of states with the worst unemployment numbers. And you know why? Because we have our leadership has chased businesses out of our state and overseas. When you've got Rick Perry coming in once a month and really, I was going to use the word luring, but enticing is probably a better word. Enticing businesses to move to Texas because of the business-friendly climate there. I mean, when that's happening on a regular basis, and I don't blame Rick Perry, Governor Sandoval. He comes over here and entices business to go to Nevada. When that's happening, big surprise, there go the jobs.
Yeah. Elizabeth, we've got less than a minute left. Our guest by phone, Elizabeth Emken, Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. What's your website again?
It's Emken2012.com, EMKEN 2012.com. And I think you both mentioned that you're very active on Facebook, as am I, and you can find my page. It's cleverly entitled Elizabeth Emken. And you can also enter into conversation with me on Twitter, at Elizabeth Emken, and I'm on there every night.
Great.
I'm going to be available to you, both of you, and all your listeners right now and from the U.S. Senate on multiple communication platforms. And, Dianne Feinstein, if you want to reach her, you're going to need to send a letter via Pony Express.
Exactly. Elizabeth, we're definitely endorsing you, and we would love to talk to you again before the election.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me on.
We'll see you in 167 hours on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk 1180.